Welcome to another episode of Spaventoso Reviews. Today we have Firestorm, the Nuclear Man, Volume 1, Issue 3. Heed the warning of the frozen dead. Kiss not the lips of Killer Frost. This issue was released in June 1978. The executive editor, Joe Orlando, cover artist Al Milgrom, writer Gary Conway, penciler Al Milgrom, inker was Bob McLeod, and colorist Mario Sen, the letterer Ben Oda. The editors for this issue were Gary Conway and Jack C. Harris. As usual, we have our featured characters, Firestorm, Ronnie Raymond, and Martin Stein. This issue does include another appearance of Cliff Carmichael and Doreen Day, and features Wallace Hapgood as the school principal. We have a new antagonist, Killer Frost, or Crystal Frost being her human name, and this issue is the one that really hooked me first when reading them. Multiplex was an okay evil villain, but the opposition between the cold, chilling ice to the hot, flaming fire of Firestorm is what I really think is key to an iconic supervillain to pair against Firestorm. We open with the duo in their Firestorm form, both risking being late, and tension is between them as their priorities conflict. Ronnie, as Firestorm, confronts Cliff Carmichael, king of the Sideburns, harassing him about how he was poking fun of Firestorm in the previous issue. The two split, with Ronnie running off to school and Martin mulling over why he keeps blacking out. This is the fourth time, which insinuates that they have merged only 4 times in these 3 issues. Ronnie seems so elated that his intimidation with Cliff worked so well. Then he seems to ignore the love interest, Doreen, who mentions something about a date after the basketball game, but Ronnie fails to take notice. Over to Martin. He is a little late for his flight, where we find out he is going to the Arctic. I wonder what that might have to do with the villain on the cover. After a 10-hour flight, they make it to the Arctic, where they are taking Stein to see one of his older experiments that he conducted to try and make use of the planet's heat from the core of the planet. And as he disembarks from the plane, he notices Crystal Frost, who was an old student of his, and she seems annoyed at the other male scientists hogging all the spotlight. So the scientists all go down to a refrigeration unit to go and check on the problem at the facility. And while touring the facility, we get a bit of backstory about Crystal. She wants to be respected in the science community for her achievements, not just because she is a woman. And as a student in college, she started to have feelings for Professor Stein and secretly fell in love with him. And she was shunned off by other suitors because they didn't respect her for her mind, only for her looks. So back to the story. Crystal corners Martin alone and confesses her love, but Martin is confused and brushes her off, wanting to focus on fixing the issue, and Crystal storms off. Crystal walks off and is distracted by her thoughts, and she notices that she accidentally left open the door to the experimental room. She wanders into the room and the door closes behind her. It was mentioned earlier that if the door shuts, it goes down to negative 1,000 degrees centigrade or negative 1,768 Fahrenheit, which is not theoretically possible, but it's a comic book in the late 70s, so they didn't have the internet to fact check that. So some time passes, and the other scientists start to notice that Crystal is missing. With the brilliant minds of the assembled scientists, they decide to check the cold room and open the door to find Killer Frost. Every molecule of Crystal's body froze and crystallized. So when Crystal Frost died, Killer Frost was born. And immediately we get a sense of her power. She uses a freezing kiss to encase her subjects in an icy block. She can shoot ice from her hands and freeze the guards. She can even seemingly fly or glide on a swirl of cold air to escape. We jump cut over to Ronnie in the middle of a basketball game. They are winning because of him, and he laments in the middle of the game about missing his dad not being there. But he does take notice of Doreen in the crowd, cheering him on. Back over to the Arctic, Killer Frost corners Martin and begins to kiss him, causing Ronnie to start shivering thousands of miles away. Ronnie runs off to the locker room and transforms into Firestorm. He is instantly teleported to the Arctic, with Killer Frost now kissing him, freezing Firestorm in place. Killer Frost somehow didn't exactly notice what happened and goes off wandering, looking for Martin again. As Killer Frost continues her rampage throughout the Arctic base, Martin tells Ronnie to use his nuclear powers to warm his body before the frost reaches their brain. Firestorm and Killer Frost start to fight, but instead of the fire affecting her, she just seems to absorb it, using the heat to become even more powerful. So, Killer Frost uses her increased power to crash the ceiling, raining debris and frozen concrete onto Firestorm. Thinking fast, Firestorm transmutes the frozen debris into snowflakes, and then attempts to use his transmutation power on Killer Frost. After a warning from Martin that the transmutation power might not work, it backfires, and Killer Frost gets away, but she is amazed at Firestorm's abilities. She quickly comes back, surprising Firestorm as he is recovering from the backfire and tries to smash him with a frozen section of the wall. But utilizing his ability to slip through solid matter that he only seems to use selectively, he goes into the floor below, and she is left confused. Killer Frost, with her increased hearing, somehow via her icy abilities, she can hear Firestorm in the floor, conversing with Martin Stein in Ronnie's head, and starts plowing ice through the floor towards them. She is bloodthirsty, and they fight again, and finally, Martin comes up with a solution. The ice is not the source of her powers, but the warmth. She gains strength by absorbing the body heat of her victims, and so they think that by freezing her, it might incapacitate her. So Firestorm gets to work, changing the walls into a refrigerator via his transmutation ability. And so, trapped in a large refrigerator unit, she begins crying, some icicly tears flowing down her face. She wants revenge on all the men who overlooked her and disregarded her through the years. And so she is left frozen with Ronnie and Martin, thinking about the fact that maybe Ronnie is finally becoming a man after having to deal with all this stuff. And we get a short teaser for the next issue, The Hyena. And that wraps up this issue, and it's one of my favorites. I sympathize a little for Crystal. She was overlooked as a scientist and had to deal with men who only wanted her for her looks and beauty and not exactly for her personality or her scientific merit. She got rejected and was misunderstood by the only person she thought she had a connection with, and was accidentally transformed into an evil ice witch. Ronnie and Martin seem to be getting closer, although they still seem a bit at odds, but they are working together better as a team. And we discovered the first real flaw in the Firestorm abilities, the inability to transmute organic matter. Although in previous issues this might have been slightly overlooked. And what is the definition of organic matter in the first place? Is it just humans or animals, or does it extend to plants or food, or is it anything that's alive that counts? Next up, we have The Hyena, so keep an eye out for the next Spaventoso reviews and check the playlist for previous episodes. Thanks for watching.